Hey guys, my name's Yanni, you're watching Talking Talk, and this is the GR Supra. Now before we get into it, just a quick spiel about subscribing to the channel. It supports us a lot, and you'll see a lot more videos for this Supra, the exhaust video, a windy road test drive, a full tech review, and so much more. So check it out before we get right into it. Now we come to the front, and Toyota has made a really unique design with this thing. First you see a huge bonnet. It's literally probably like more than half the car. I know it's not, but it's massive. The engine basically goes up to about here, and then you've got an even bigger front end. Now the styling here is a really unique headlight. The LED light actually comes all the way around and wraps. And when you use the indicator to change lanes, the blinker, the whole LED light lights up in orange, which is probably one of the biggest blinker indicator lights I've ever seen. Now there's a really cool lip splitter down below which accents the red color of the car really nicely. It's black and it goes all the way under, and then you've got a really big intercooler underneath and basically a lot of vents going around it to help the design, not that they really do anything. And also a shout out to Toyota for the really cool Toyota GR number plates on this one, and the carbon fiber look, which matches the red and black really well. Alright, so this is the GTS model, which is the premium in other nations, and what that means is you get upgraded 19-inch forged alloy wheels versus the 18 on the stock GR Supra. It also gets bigger brakes and red brake calipers. Now these are 348mm front rotors and 345mm at the back, versus 330mm at the back on the stock GR, which is an upgrade on this model as well. Now these 275mm tyres on the rear and 255mm tyres on the front. They're wrapped in Pilot Super Sports, which is a bit of an older model. It would be better to get the PS4S, but we'll get into that later. On the side, there's more unique designs going on here. A lot of controversy with the fake vents that you can see on the front and on the side, and basically a lot of fake vents. Toyota says that they are able to be open for tuners, but I don't know why Toyota just didn't open them itself to allow airflow and to improve the cooling and aerodynamics of the car. Now it's got a really sleek design on the roof. It's called a double bubble roof, where it actually is higher for the passenger and the driver to allow them more headroom, particularly if they have a helmet on. At the back, you have a really wide stance with these flared wheel arches. They're just so fat as they go wide, and they're really cool. Also, because there are no back seats, that means the cockpit is smaller, the cabin, which means they can save weight, but it's a Supra that doesn't have, 4 seats as all Supras are supposed to have, and even the competitors like the Skyline. So it is a much smaller body inside. Onto the back, and you're greeted with a really cool lip that helps with the sleekness of the Supra. I'm a bit disappointed because I didn't see the hydraulic spoiler from the FT1 concept, which I knew was never going to happen, but it still would have been cool to have that raising spoiler that the concept had. But you've got this sleek lip here anyway. Then there are more fake vents on the side just to complement the rest of the fake vents on the car, and a really nice design for the rear lights. Really simple, but actually really modern and sleek looking. Now you have a big diffuser on the back with plastic lip as well, which is really good, and nice big exhaust pipes that can almost fit my hand through, and they're real. There's no plastic to make it more fake. Now something cool is in the middle, this light is basically based off race cars, where when they have this light, all race cars have it, so the cars behind them can see them in the rain and it'll start flashing. But on the Supra, it lights up when you're in reverse, which is a nice little touch to have that in the middle of the car. It just makes it look really cool. Now onto something that I don't like is this boot. I mean, the boot's fine, but it doesn't have a button. So you have to hold down the remote, and there it is. Now the boot is 296 litres, which isn't too bad, but it has a narrow opening. So it's a bit tricky to get things in if things are a lot wider. Although the inside is quite spacious, but it's just narrow to get in. I don't know why they didn't make it wider, basically in line with the dimensions of the car. Although the boot does go through to to the front of the car. So if you do have something long and narrow, you can push it in and push it through underneath. Under the bonnet is BMW's inline 6-cylinder 3-litre turbocharged engine. As everyone knows, controversially, this Supra is powered by BMW. What that means is it's got a 285 kilowatt engine worth of power, up from 250 kilowatts on the older model, but torque stays at 500 newton-meters. Now that full power comes on at 5800 to 6500 RPM versus the torque, which comes on at 1600 to 4500 RPM. I think they were probably modest with last year's model with the 250 kilowatt. It was probably a lot more because 35 kilowatt jump is a big jump with no torque gains. So it's a big bonnet, big engine with big power, and it's actually really tunable up to 350 kilowatts just with a simple tune and downpipe. So they're able to extract a lot of figures out of this. Now we're sitting inside of the GR Supra, and there are BMW remnants everywhere, which actually isn't a bad thing. People get really controversial about this, but BMW makes great interiors, although they have taken a lot. It is basically a BMW interior. Your display is BMW, your infotainment system, the AC system is BMW, all the presets, even the gear stick is BMW, the wheel, the dash, a lot of it basically is mostly BMW, which I don't mind because it is a really intuitive and elegant interior. Now the seats are sports seats that are heated, although they aren't cooled, which is a bit of a letdown, but they do keep you quite snug with a nice metal accent and a bit of a bucket-y feel. And it keeps you comfortable enough when you're going on a more spirited drive, which is really good as well. On the inside, there are 2 cup holders and a really small storage compartment. There is no holder for your sunnies and then your glove box. And that's really about it. Now you move up your buttons. You have your safety system button, which turns on and off all the assists that it's got, the blind spot monitor, active cruise, and so on. Then your traction control button if you want to turn it off. Then you have your parking assistance button. You can click it and the rear camera will come on. A big sport button which enables sport mode or normal mode. Your start stop at traffic lights that you can turn on and off. And then you have your dials. Basically the infotainment system can be controlled by either this big dial here or the touchscreen itself, which is really nifty. When you're driving, you don't want to reach over and touch. You can just use one hand as you're driving to change the audio, the menu, the settings, and so on. Now the shifter, of course, we said BMW, the small classic BMW system. It's got a 12-volt connector and 1 USB port. Only 1 USB port, but then again, it's only a 2-seater, so what do you expect? And then there's your wireless charging port underneath. It has a little plastic here to hold it in, which is smart so the phone doesn't go flying. But it is a bit tricky to get it out, especially if you have something connected in the USB port and the 12 volt, it's hard to pull it out of this plasticky area. Climate control is good. There's heated seats, not cooled as we mentioned, but there's no dual button. There's no button to hit. So there is dual climate control, but you have to adjust them individually if you do want to have the same temperature on each. So you have to put one all the way up and then the other. And something interesting with this climate system is it gets pushed in. It's sort of like it's going to fold up and then CD is going to pop out, but it's just whenever I click it just gets pushed in, which is really weird and flimsy. Onto the control itself, it's an 8.8 inch touchscreen. It's the BMW system, which is good, the iDrive, but there is no Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a huge downfall, and that's just an Australian thing. I'm pretty sure other countries have it. BMW went through a phase of making people pay for CarPlay to get it activated. They've stopped that now in Australia, thankfully, but this still doesn't have it, which is just a bit disappointing. Onto the dash. Now it's digital, but it's simple, too simple. The speedo is quite small on the left, then you have your rev counter in the middle, and a big gap on the right which just shows when the doors open. They could have used that space a lot better to allow you to customize it, maybe show your power and your torque figures, your slippage from your wheels or just anything, any sport display that they had there. And this doesn't really have many sport displays on the 8.8-inch display. You can see your power and torque, but not really much else. So they could have done a lot better with the dash. Even when you hit sport mode, it just goes a little bit red, and that's about it. It doesn't really do much else. In a lot of other cars, when you hit sport mode, the whole dash just completely changes color. It's like got a whole new personality, which the car does do when you hit sport mode. So just a bit disappointing there. Now the GTS or premium model that we have here gets a heads-up display, which shows your speed and your rev counter and the limit, and your audio settings as well. It also gets metal pedals and 12-speaker JBL system. The system isn't too bad, but for a premium car sort of made by BMW, you would probably be expecting a bit more crispier, more thumpy noise from the sound system, especially in the premium model. So it's not too bad, but Harman Kardon would have been a lot better to increase the wattage, because this is only a 425 watt system. Now, something interesting with the braking. Now, I have a big flipper foot, a size 12 foot. When you're doing a full emergency stop, let's say you're on a racetrack or just an emergency, you slam the brakes. When the brake goes all the way to the end, my big foot sort of hits the top and scrapes it, which makes it a bit uncomfortable and sometimes a bit difficult to hit the brakes the whole way, which is just a random but necessary thing to know, especially if you're tracking it and you're going to be heavy braking a lot. So there is the interior of this Supra. Overall, it's pretty decent because it is BMW. A few plasticky sort of feels around. You know, there's not really an awful lot of thickness in the leather going on. Fake carbon fiber, which looks cool, but just all around a bit plasticky, a bit hard, a bit cheap. The steering wheel as well could have been a nice thicker leather, or even Alcantara as an option. Would have been awesome to have it more of a racy wheel. The paddles are little. They're not bad, I mean, they're just paddles. I prefer nice big ones though. And then on the wheel, you have your cruise control on the left and your options on the right. It's a bit tricky to change songs with this sort of rotary wheel, but it does the job anyway. And you've got auto headlights and your blinkers on the left. So although it's Toyota, which is Japanese, and they put the blinkers on the right, this is on the left because BMW. So there is the interior. Now let's take it for a drive. So how much does it cost? Well, it comes in at 87k for the base model, the GT in Australia, which ends up being around 90 to 92k drive away, and then 97k for the GTS or premium model. So that's a 10k difference between the base and the premium. So you definitely have to be certain that you're gonna get the premium if you want all those additional features that come with it. Now, we know that this was built basically right next to the Z4, the BMW. And the reason is that Toyota has stopped developing 6-cylinder engines. And who is the expert at inline 6 engines? BMW. And that's why Toyota went with them, because it would have cost way too much for them to develop this engine themselves and then create a whole new production line. There were just way too many complexities, so they decided to work with BMW, but they did have a lot of say in it. One of the downsides that gets me as a traditionalist is the lack of manual. Toyota Supra needs to have a manual. And I know that things are changing and everyone wants auto nowadays, but I feel like a lot of people that want a Supra want the manual. And another thing is that it's 2 seats. Supras, a lot of people have said need to have the 2+2 layout, 4 seats. I mean, it doesn't need it because it's such a sporty car, and I understand that they were copying the Z4 platform, which is a 2-seater, but it would have been good to have an extra 2, although it would have made it heavier and slower and so on. But anyway, there it is. The engine is paired to an 8-speed torque converter automatic, which is a pretty solid pairing. The transmission shifts good, although it can be a little hesitant at slower speeds, but that's basically solved with sport mode. So those that did want the DCT, the dual clutch, yes, that definitely is more refined, but this is still solid, and that shouldn't be a reason not to buy this car because you wanted the DCT. It does a really good job as it is, and probably negligible, the differences in the shifts that you might not even notice anyway. 0 to 100 is 4.1 seconds. Because of the power increases in this year's model, that basically goes from 4.3 down to 4.1. 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, which is supercar speed we're talking about now. In sport mode, it firms up the suspension, tightens the steering, and makes the exhaust super raspy. Basically just lightens up the car everywhere. And this all coincides with the remarkable handling. It's sharp, but in a sort of graceful way. It's really direct and pointed and not too oversteery. Thanks to the lightweight 1500 kilo frame, there's the standard LSD that comes on all models, and a perfect 50-50 distribution of weight, which complements the chassis and steering really incredibly well. This car was made to go around corners, and it loves doing it, and you could do it all day and have so much fun in it. It's a real joy to ride on those real windy, cool roads. Even on track, this will kill it on track. Now, it's rear-wheel drive, so traction, well, it's expected that if you're putting in heaps of power, you are going to lose traction. That's just standard with any rear-wheel drive car, especially one with a really high power-to-weight ratio like this. You do have those 275 tires, which help with traction in a lot of settings, but if you do have a heavy foot, you are going to lose it out a bit, but the steering and handling helps bring it back into line really well, which is really impressive for it to hold together when it's putting down so much power. If it's a damp, wet, dewy day, be careful, it might slip out. And if you hit traction off, this is a warning. If you turn traction off, you have a much higher chance of killing yourself. That's just because this becomes a nutcase when traction is off. And basically, it should only be used if you're really experienced, if you're drifting, or if you know what you're doing. So avoid that at all costs. Would not recommend it. The 350mm rotors do really well. The stopping ability on this machine is fantastic. But at really high speeds, you do notice sometimes that it does take its time to come to a complete stop if you're going, we're talking sort of much higher speeds on a track. And that might not be helped by the older Super Sport tires. The PS4S are the new replacement for the Super Sports, and some people have been complaining about the Super Sports, but they do okay. The PS4Ss, if you are going to replace these in the future, go the PS4S, absolutely. Now, it is an incredibly fun car that can be pushed to the absolute limit. It's honestly way more track focused than I expected. I know it's a sports car, but we're talking almost supercar territory. For the money that you're paying for this, you're almost there. And that's the thing, you're getting into supercar, but then it acts on the daily really easily. It gets 7.7 litres per 100, and as you can see, that's with thanks to start-stop, which is another feature that it has, not that I like it. 7.7 litres per 100, probably very unrealistic. Your combined cycle will likely be, up to 10 litres per 100. If you're on the motorway, definitely less. But it is definitely capable of those low figures because they've just refined this so well, and that 8-speed changes gears so smoothly, and if you're just doing daily commuting, it gets to those higher gears quite quickly. But then when you do want to kick it, you want to push it, it easily will drop down 2, 3, 4 gears and let you take off. That's why I'm not fussed that it doesn't have that DCT. So you're basically getting a BMW, a sporty, fast, quick, enjoyable, reliable BMW for Toyota money. And that's the thing I love about this, is that you're getting all the features that a BMW owner will get with the Toyota price tag and Toyota servicing. It's unbelievable. You get 5 years warranty with this versus the BMW Z4, which has 3. And the first 5 services only cost $385, which is just crazy. In this car, it's basically an M engine, and you pay only 335 Australian dollars for the first 5 services. So well done to Toyota. The only downside I have heard is that service is difficult. A lot of Supra owners have complained that the Toyota technicians have not really been given much training to handle this, and it does take long to get things serviced, to change parts and so on, because they're just not ready for it. So it would be nice to see that improve, and the ability for the Supra mechanics to just be aware of when things do go wrong and how to fix them quickly and efficiently. Now, this Supra competes with cars that cost a lot more. The Cayman S is the direct competitor that Toyota says they're competing with, and that costs 135k. That's more than 40k more, or 50k if you go the base model. And it does just as good a job, and you're saving so much money. Other competitors will be the Audi S5, the Jag F-Type, the Lotus Exige, or even the BMW, any of the M's, the M2s, M3s, and so on. And they are just way more expensive for similar sort of power figures. And this, you're getting a unique design, a unique look, and a similar sort of output from it. And because it's so small and sporty, you could probably do it as just as good a job as them on the track. So there is the Supra review. Thank you for making it this far. If you have, I hope this was of some use to you. Please support us by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. These videos do take a lot of time, and we put a lot of effort into these to edit them and publish them and so on. And I do have a day job, so I'm trying to do this on the side for your viewing. So please support, it means a lot to us. And we'll see you in the next video.